Okay. We continue with our mimer, with our Hasidic discourse. We're explaining the Medrash that the wise individual chooses a king, while others choose the noblemen, the ministers. And we explained the metaphor. Jewish people choose God over the nations of the world choose the ministers. And the reason is, that we're explaining now, in the analog, choosing God means you have to put yourself aside. Oh, okay. Thank you. Put yourself aside, bittul, self-effacement.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
Putting yourself aside, bittul, in order to fulfill the king's wishes. And the nations don't want to, they have their own agenda, or people have their own agenda, and they're not ready to put aside what they want to serve God. They just want to get from God, so they'll do whatever is necessary to get from Him. Right? Jewish people just want to serve God, not what they get from Him, but they want to serve Him. Furthermore, in serving God, you get less of an influence in your life because you get based on what you put in. That's what's called a direct connection. Like a good parent, right? Good parent. The the aunt or the uncle or the grandparents are not a good parent because they just give and they don't have to deal with the mess afterwards. Right? Parent gives more, specific to the child. So God gives more specific. So others, right? Nations of the world, they want a lot. They don't want to have to work for it. They don't want to serve. They want to be served. They want to get. Okay, so the address is heaven above. But in heaven above, I'm going to get from the influencers above because that's what I want is influence. Right? Whether that's sun, that's the moon, you know, whatever it is. I want the influence. Not only that, I want a lot of it. I don't want to put myself aside. I'll put myself aside only as much in order what I get to get what I want. Which is, hey, that's pretty human. But that's not the Jewish way. The Pikeah, the smart one, chooses God to serve, not to be served, and will get less of an influence, like the parent gives less to the child than the grandparent will, or the aunt and uncle, right? So, hey, I want the aunt and uncle because this uncle, boy, do they give, you know, they lay it on. That's what the child wants. No, we, the Jewish people, put that all aside because we'd rather have God. Now, in the terms of the mimer, I gave it to you in like in a child's way, right? So, yeah. Just to give you the metaphor that kind of like, oh, yeah, that rings true. And so nations of the world want from the get from the makif. The makif is the encompassing light that all encompasses and equal, is a source of great influence and doesn't take into consideration the individual and what they deserve it or what they need. It's like, like the guy who wants to be under the radar. I'm under the radar, and therefore I can get whatever I want, whatever I'm looking for under the radar. But the Jewish people are ready to put all that aside to have more in life, right? And even though, yeah, we could also get from there, and we would get a lot, and actually we would get them all more than the others would, as we see in the world. Yeah, Jews have more. We're not coming necessarily from a good place, right? But it's more dear to them, to the Jew, to get less, that it should come from God's inner will, his holiness, rather than the encompassing light that is a very powerful and great light, but it's not meant for me specifically. Not meant for me specifically. Meaning, wow.
Personal connection.
Huh?
Personal connection.
Personal connection, yeah. Yeah. So just to give metaphor for that, a husband rather have the food that his wife gives lovingly, or the child rather have the food that a mother gives lovingly, maybe less, right? Less of it, because it's meant for specifically exactly the way he like, well, maybe that's not a good example, the way he likes it. That would be a good metaphor. Specifically what he needs. As giving lovingly, then, going to an all you can eat fancy restaurant, and it's all there. And it wasn't meant for you specifically, but you can have a lot more. You can pick out a lot more. Excuse the expression.
Yeah. Wrong with that.
Hmm.
It's sick. The kid is that nice.
Yeah. Wow.
Mhm.
So I'd rather get it direct. So same thing's from God. Everything comes from God. The question is how it's coming from God. Is it coming lovingly from God, from his holiness, from his inner will? That's where we want to get. When you get from there, you can get less. meant specifically for you in a loving way. It's God's holiness. It's His inner will. Or you can get, under the radar from this all-encompassing light from above. Not specifically for you, but boy, I can get a lot. To smorgasbord, all you can eat, top restaurant. It wasn't meant for you. It wasn't given to you lovingly, but you don't care about that. Right? On that level, all you care is that you got a lot. And you didn't have to work for it. But to get a lot, to get what's yours, so to speak, to get it from um, your loving spouse, right? There's a relationship, and the relationship you got to work for. In that relationship, you got to work. The smorgasbord, you don't have to work, right? Right? You know, be as I am. Wow, is that good? I hope that brings some clarity. I think it's beautiful. I mean, for me, yeah. Now, so that's all to appreciate why the Jewish people choose God. Yeah. I guess if we stop acting like apes and start acting like humans and listen to what's going on in the class here, we'll get some answers. Someone's asking some questions online. But of course, often what happens, they have their own agenda. So rather than, in this perfect example of not having bittul, self-effacement, and not listening and taking in, they want to just spew. So rather than being apes united to be stronger, let's be godly and united and be stronger. And let's listen in. Let's listen in. Okay, now we have one trouble with this, the way we just explained it, that we need to understand, because um, in the Medrash, we said that the wise one is choosing the king, right? On a Nasid Malka, I choose the king, and it gives a reason for it, that the ministers are interchangeable. They could lose their position while the king does it, right? The king does it. Huh?
He's dependable.
Well, he's dependable. He's the king. He's not losing his,
He's dependable because they can change kings.
No. The king doesn't change. Does God change?
No, I don't mean.
Does God change?
The ministers can change. They're not,
Right.
they're not dependable, in other words.
I don't know if dependable is the right word.
Okay.
They're not there. They're not there for good. Right. Whatever. Right.
Okay.
Okay. So how does that fit in with what we're saying? Because that's what the Medrash says. So remember, we're studying Torah here. We're not studying an idea. It's important to remember, even though the idea we're speaking about is a godly idea, and the analogies, metaphors that I gave are nice and so on. But in the end, what I'm here to do is to teach Torah. I'm not here to teach ideas. I'm not here to Yeah, that's what I'm here to teach Torah. Simple. Okay. So the Medrash, which is part of the Torah, says that the reason why he chooses the king over the ministers is because the king is permanent in his position and the others are not. Simple. Okay? That makes him dependable. Not dependable is not the point exactly. Okay? So how does that fit in with this exactly? So the Rebbe explains in the Bible. So you can say seemingly we could answer the following. When we say seemingly, in the end means it won't be that way. Okay? Won't be that way, but we're going to go down this path. Influence, which the nations, that's what they want. That's what human beings want. They want more in life. Plain and simple. More in life. Right? That's human. Not Jewish, but human. Right? More materially and spiritually in all aspects of life. You want more out of life. Hey, all the advertising's about that, right? So the influence that comes from the more out of life is from klipa. It's klipa. Klipa means the shell covering over the divine. It's about me. It's not about God. Now, yes, you're maybe recognizing God, right? Right. But it's coming from lumazeh, from the negative side. It's something that doesn't have ultimately sustenance and permanence to it. Why? Because we just learned this in chapter 36 and 37 in Tanya, right? Right now we're in chapter 38 of Tanya, but we just learned this concept in Tanya. That what? After we refine the world, the sparks of the divine that fell into klipa, into the shell that covers over of the divine in the materiality of this world, which the spark of the divine that is in every material thing is the existence and the vitality of the thing. It's covered over, it's a shell that's covering over it, but after we refine it, meaning that we use this cup and the coffee for a higher purpose, for a divine purpose, like I said, a blessing over it, and with a mindfulness that this is for a higher purpose to be used for, David's coffee, l'chaim.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Like that.
or maybe the mimer did, or both, or both, right? So you refine, then it becomes nullified the negativity, that source of initial vitality that was only of klipa, of the shell that's covering over the divine. All the more so when it comes to a Jew, that even now, a Jew can also get from a negative source, right? That's only temporarily. Yeah, right? Hear that? So, yeah, people have some questions over here, but those questions right now are not on the topic. And we're going to remain focused on the teachings. because that's what I'm here to do. And any other things at another time could be dealt with. Likewise, on the other side of things, right? So that's one point. In other words, it's not permanent. Darkness is not permanent. It's the absence of light. Evil is not permanent. It's the absence of good. All of that is ultimately going to be removed from this world, right? How? Because we elevate the spark of the divine from the being animating from klipa in the negative source, and we reveal through using the material world. We bring it to the divine source. And likewise, on the other hand, the influence that we get right now that comes from holiness that we said is limited, right? As opposed to, right, getting it from the mother. The child is getting limited as opposed to going to the all you can eat, you know, smorgasbord of life that you get. Whew. But that's only temporarily, that now it's limited. Only now. After that, the source of the divine inner will be revealed, right? Which that source is from also the makif, the all-encompassing light of God, the infinite light of God, but it's from the inner part of of that encompassing light, as opposed to the external, right? Then the influence from holiness will be what much greater than even what the influence today is when you get it from the external aspect of the makif, which is then, the smorgasbord of today, right? The all you can eat today. As our sages say that, oh boy, you know what? I didn't realize I'm over time. So, yeah, ishmak, as we say in French. So enjoyable. But yeah, we'll continue that thought, okay?
Thank you.
Chaim, everybody. Thank you for joining. So in about around 8:40, we will do Chumash and Rashi. 9:30 will be Tanya. And then after that will be Rambam. Thank you for joining. Sei mir gesund.